My name is Elijah. I am the host of We Are Human. I'm also a film photographer, and we're here in Inwood Hill Park.
My name is Malika Dove. I go by Offering Rain. I'm a musical and visual artist.
Offering Rain. Where did you come up with that?
Offering Rain came from a line in a poem that I wrote, and that poem actually ended up in a song that's on like my first album as Offering Rain. I used to go by a different artist name. I went by my first name. But that body of work under Offering Rain just felt really different. And I was like looking for a new performer name, and I was talking to my cousin about it, and I was like, oh, what if I, went for I Am an Offering Rain? He was like, Offering Rain, just like do that.
Condense it.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, I held on to it.
Love
That's
it.
where it came from, yeah.
So, you were born and raised in New York. This entire series, asks the question, like, who is New York? What is New York? So, as someone who is a native New Yorker, like, what comes to mind when you hear that question?
That's a big question. No, I think of like a big body of people, actually. Like, I think that who is New York feels like a question about a community or like even like an entity. It feels like a very almost intangible thing. New York can't really fully be defined by like one symbol, one figure. New York is so many people, and I think that's like the true nature of New York is like constant fluctuation and shifting and like morphing, and New York is constantly being created and destroyed at the same time.
I like that, yeah. Well, I mean, so what communities have you like found yourself in while living here and like just kind of feeling a part of? You DJ, you're a musician, you're a vocalist, producer, visual artist, like you do so much. So like what kind of communities have you like found yourself more immersed in over time?
The first community I think of is the artist community, because I grew up in an artist building in Lower Manhattan. So I like from a very early age, like 4 years old, I was surrounded by artists, writers, actors, performers, and my dad is also a painter. So he would take me to galleries. Like I was like a little art gallery kid, like running around, not really caring about the art, but just like being a kid in that space where everyone's very like, oh, art. And so I think about, like, I often think that it was a group of artists that raised me, because it was my dad, but there was an extension, like
around
me that was this community of artists. So I think that was my very first community experience. And I grew up with a single parent, so I feel like I definitely I spent a lot of time in my neighborhood, and as I grew up, I started to find like other communities as I dove deeper into my interests
like different niches and stuff.
So like eventually, and then I studied art too, so I was kind of still on the, always had my like foot in the artist community, my foot in hand, and then like I was exploring other things while I was experimenting with what I wanted to do with my life and all that.
But you're also like, you mentioned earlier that like music was also kind of like a more of a low-key like passion of yours. So tell us a little bit more about that, and like also kind of when you say artists, you mean like more visual-based artists. So like what about the musicians and the art, like the music artist community in New York as well, like how you've kind of navigated towards like the duality of both?
Yeah, it's interesting, like growing up with my dad, he didn't really ever listen to music. And I think maybe that silence was like...
You're like, I need some noise.
It was a catalyst for me being like, I love music. I was listening to music all the time, and it helped that my dad's from India, and something that's very popular in India is Bollywood. So Bollywood films have a lot of music, and they're very, very interesting sonically. And Bollywood films are just so entertaining. A little problematic, but very entertaining. And so I feel like I got a lot of joy out of like listening to music. And eventually, like, I can remember I had like a bunch of little notebooks. I started writing poetry like at like 6, 7.
Oh, wow.
So I was always interested in like lyricism, and like I thought, you know, songs are really beautiful, and I think I always had like a really strong curiosity for music. And then my dad found like this like really like a dusty ass keyboard from the basement. It like one key was broken, but it was like my favorite. It was like, for me, it was kind of like a toy because I was like, this thing makes sound. But I remember I was like playing things by ear and just like learning a little bit about music and the keyboard, and I was just like always very fascinated by sound and music. So I think it was just creeping up on me. And we talked earlier about this, but I kept that interest like to myself for a long time because I think, I don't know, maybe it was a little sacred. So I didn't really share that with anyone. I started like writing raps in like a little black book, and I think it was just a pure form of expression. You know, teenagers have a lot of angst, like they need an outlet.
All built up,
like so I was like letting it out on the pad, and that eventually led to learning how to produce and like, I mean, over time, but learning how to produce and even exploring DJing and just following my joy really in that short history.
In that trajectory. I think it's very common for people to feel or talk about like this pull that New York has on people, whether you're like from out of town, you're visiting, you're thinking about moving here. But for someone who was born and raised here, what are some of the things that you would say, like, and I mean this, you know, respectfully, obviously, but like has kept you kind of anchored here, like that you haven't left?
Well, I still feel that pull, like even being here. But there's also other things that keep me here. I have family here that are very important to me. But that's also just an excuse. Like, I'm here because I love it here and I want to be here. And in many ways, it makes me happy to be here. I also have New York City pride, which I feel like a lot of New Yorkers have that pride of like being from here, and I certainly have that. But the thing about the city is that whatever a person is interested in, they will find that thing here. You can find anything in New York. You can find any like kind of food, cuisine, cultural event, so much great free programming, lots of food, sometimes expensive, sometimes not.
Queens has a lot of food.
Top tier.
Yeah.
Top tier. Best borough. But I mean, I could probably go on about what keeps me here, but certainly my love for the arts and my love for the culture here, the like polycultural aspect of New York. There's people here from all over the world, and I think that makes this place like beautiful and really special. And I feel that that's like shaped my story too, because my parents also come from two very different parts of the world. And they could only meet here in New York. So.
Same, my parents also were like Brazil and Peru, and like they just happened to go to the same high school in Queens, and like,
there you go, yeah.
It's crazy. How can the experience of being a creative in New York be improved?
Oh, I guess my thought on this is like there's so many different artist communities of like surrounded by different values. There are like literally so many artists in this city. And it's hard to say like what every artist needs. I think every artist needs something unique, but I would say like let's do our best to empower others. And you know, I feel like I'm done with hierarchies. I'm tired of hierarchies. Like, we have so much hierarchies in our society. Like, we do not need to be recreating those hierarchies in artistic spaces. So I mean, a lot of the work that I think could be done is being done at the pace of like, you know, people are organizing collectives, people are unionizing. I support that. people are advocating for fair pay. Like there's a couple of strikes going on right now. Like I think just coming together more based on shared values and yeah, being bold and being collaborative. I think most importantly, just being collaborative and making the artistic. There's so many artistic scenes, so it's hard to say
Right,
like, what
yeah.
one group should do, but collaborate and empower others. I think that's my short answer.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Just want to pivot a little bit, and this is like one of my like favorite questions, and like I'm always so curious about like people's journeys. If you were to like look back at your life over the last year or 2 years, 3 years, what would you say is something that's incredibly valuable that you learned about yourself, or maybe that you're still learning?
The thing that I'm currently learning is how to not over expend my energy and just I read somewhere recently that we're like lightning rods and we can conduct all the energy that we need. If we have clarity, then we'll have enough energy to do like what is in our alignment. So just kind of having that like discernment to know, is this what I should be doing? Am I being focused on like what my heart wants? Asking myself those questions, having that clarity and using my energy accordingly. Like that's what I'm working through right now.
That's a crazy metaphor, like the lightning rod.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone explain it that way.
I read that, so I can't take credit for it. But,
But still, yeah. Now that's all I'm gonna think about. On that same note, looking back, you know, on those few years, like what is something, or like when was the last time that like you felt like genuinely proud of yourself, where you got to like acknowledge it to the degree where you like stopped for a moment and it was like, yes, I did that?
I'm part of a DJ collective called Disco Auntie, and we did a Pride event in June we had a partner, Bliss Factory, and they helped us put on programming that was free and intergenerational, and it was outdoors. And like,
Nice.
I feel like that's my dream. Is like, it was like a dream come true, because it was, I mean, growing up in the building I grew up in, it was a very intergenerational building. So if there's one thing that I would say could improve artistic scenes, is that they should be more inclusive of different age groups and to challenge ageism. Like, that's a real thing that I know people have, and I think we should challenge that, because there's a lot that we can all learn from each other, that our elders can learn from us, and surely that we can learn from our elders.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah. And then what was the current one? I know it was
You were talking about Disco Auntie, like when you
Right.
felt like last proud of yourself
Yeah.
because of how they organized like what
Yeah.
you were doing.
Yeah, so we got some help from our partner, Bliss Factory, but we were able to throw free programming that was outdoors, and and it was a bunch of people dancing together very joyfully. It was very wholesome. It was early, it was like accessible. So I feel very proud of Disco Auntie for being able to be a part of that. And we've also like organized parties for like a year now. I mean, we started pre-COVID, but took a halt. But I'm really proud of Disco Auntie, because I feel like we are creating like a very wholesome community around music, and that makes me really happy.
Awesome. So jumping back into the city, tell me some of like your favorite parts of New York. You kind of you were born in Queens, grew up in Lower Manhattan. You live over here now. Throughout your life, yeah, what are just some of like your favorite spots that you've been to, or like that you have like cherished memories from?
Yeah, when I grew up in Lower Manhattan, I was right next to the Hudson River. And living up here, I'm still next to the Hudson River, so I feel like a strong connection to the Hudson, in the sense that it has seen me grow up.
Yeah.
And it's like the body of water that grew up next to me. That I grew up next to. I'll have dreams about the Hudson River. Sometimes,
Really?
yeah, like the waves will be like rising, or they're not always like super scary, but the waves will be rising, and I feel like sometimes that river speaks to me through my dreams.
You did say Queens is the best borough.
I did say that, yeah. I mean, I love eating in Jackson Heights.
That's where I like grew up for a few years.
Oh yeah.
So no stranger to that.
Yeah.
The Roosevelt Ave, all of it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so much like good food here.
I think there's a Colombian spot there called La Pequeña Colombia.
I've never been.
That's like kind of close to 82nd.
Okay.
But like my parents like would go there on like some of their first dates, and like
Cute.
I've been there. Like it's just crazy. Like a lot of those establishments are still there after like 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, and that's great. Like so like the city changes so much. So many businesses come and go. So it's nice to hear that there's like a long-standing, family-owned restaurant. Yeah. But I mean, there's no parts of New York that I really don't like. Like I even like Times Square, but only when there's like nobody there, and
which is like
and it's like nighttime.
Barely.
Yeah.
If you spend a lot of time in the parks, if you spend a lot of time outdoors, the people that you've met here, like how has that kind of pushed you as a creative and impacted you?
Yeah. I feel like I'm always doing research and development, whether I'm conscious of that or not. I think everyone's doing research and development,
That's
whether
hilarious.
they're conscious of it or not. But I can remember like when the pandemic started, I had not seen my partner for like almost 2 months, and we decided to rent a zip car and go to the beach. And we spent the whole day at the beach, and after that I was like, I wrote a song. It was kind of a sad song, but I wrote a song that was about like mortality, but it's not like super sad. It's just like just confronting mortality. I think COVID really like impacted the world, and we were all like shaken up by how impactful it was. And I was able to really feel that and express that after spending time like near a body of water or on the sand, or like being in a park. I do feel that being outdoors is rejuvenating and kind of gives me the space to like not think. Like I'm always thinking, and being outdoors intentionally is like a space to just not think. It's just like receive and like
you just kind of like sit.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that like is inherently connected to like being in New York City, but obviously being in New York City influences like my daily life. And like I get inspired on the train, like especially because commuting from up here, I have such a long commute, so sometimes I'll be like making music on my phone, like sampling stuff or like finding apps that I can make music on, so or writing. And I film a lot of like things on my phone. I take photos on my phone. So I think I'm very like visually inspired by New York, and spiritually very inspired by like being in nature. I definitely feel visually inspired by the city, the landscape of the city, the lights, and like especially at nighttime. Like I'm really drawn to light in darkness. Like that really interests me visually.
So like when it's like the
nighttime,
the skyline, you know, and everything, you can just see all the lights like at night, and
that
everything.
really inspires me.
That is
Something about that like really does it for me. But then on the other hand, like there's so many different cultures, like people from different backgrounds in New York, and that definitely influences my DJing and even some of my music. So
right, because of all the just the different tastes, the styles there.
Yeah, like my DJing style is for sure fusion. Like I'm playing for the world. Like I'm like everybody can dance, and I'm just trying to get everybody to dance. So there's a lot of, I mean, it's interesting, like I'm kind of going on a tangent, but even in Bollywood music and a lot of Indian music and from other parts of the world, like people are always sampling each other, and I love finding that. Like there's actually a Brazilian track that samples this Punjabi song. I don't know, you know the song by Daddy Yankee that's is Mírame. Mírame, mírame. Na, 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 na.
I am exposing myself by saying I don't know that song.
Well, it's all good. Daddy Yankee has also sampled Indian music. Folks in Bollywood are listening to music from all around the world. There's like Middle Eastern influence. There's there's a hip hop influence. Like it's. I think listening to Bollywood is just listening to fusion music, and my interest in Bollywood was because of that fusion element, and I feel like that thread through and interest in fusion has played makes its way through in my DJing, and I'm definitely like playing with like these two songs sound the same, but they're from two different parts of the world, and I love doing that. I love like playing with that.
So one of the last questions that I have is one of my favorites because I feel like, you know, we're constantly changing, and I always include this in my We're Human episodes because it's kind of like, it's a time capsule project, essentially. Gives us a chance to kind of reflect and listen back to a point of our lives where we were in a place that's special to us. So I'm curious to know, what is a message that you would have for your future self? Like in this moment right now, like what's something that you would like to let your future self know? Be it however long it is in the future, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now.
Well, I'm thinking like a couple of thoughts now, but take a deep breath. Yeah, I mean, if I could give advice to my future self, I'm trying to think like what. Yeah, just recenter, like go within. You have the answers, they're within. Don't be hard on yourself. Take it easy. Be patient, have faith, all those things. Yeah, I just, I guess I'm hoping that I can be gentle with myself through this process of life and art making, and, you know, I think I deserve that. I think we all deserve that gentleness and like kindness towards ourselves. So I would say just be gentle.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know how you feel hearing this and like when you're 35 or something, you know?
Oh yeah.
It'd be kind of surreal in a way.
Yeah.
But as we come to an end, and, you know, kind of elaborate more on like why we're here, in one word, what does New York City mean to you?
Change.
Change. I love that. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or should we keep it as is?
Let's keep it as is.
Okay, we're keeping it as is. Change. And how does it feel to share your art with New York City, more specifically on the upcoming Project Feel anniversary event, September 21st?
Well, I'm really excited to hear about Project Feel, and I can feel that there's a lot of love in this space, so I'm just excited to bring my love and add to this pile of love. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting other New Yorkers and sharing space and just like learning from each other and having a good time.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet people, and I'm excited to hear your DJ set now. Like, I got to listen to like a little bit of some snippets from your website, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be fun.
Cool.
So awesome. Thank you so much for doing this and for your time and for showing us this park. We're in Inwood Hill Park, and happy to be here.
Yeah.
Cool.